All right, let's talk about America's nuclear engine. The US has the biggest nuclear power fleet in the world, right? It's this massive carbon-free machine that's just humming along 24/7. But have you ever stopped to think, what does it actually take to feed this thing? That's what we're digging into today. We're looking at the fuel, the uranium that powers these reactors. Its past, its present, and where it's all going.
Okay, so it all kicks off with this one simple number, 94. That's it. That's how many commercial nuclear reactors we have up and running in the United States. And you gotta remember, every single one of them is a powerhouse. They're an absolutely critical piece of our country's energy grid. And when you put all those 94 reactors together, what do you get? Well, you get about 19% of all electricity in the US. I mean, think about that. That is a huge slice of the pie. It's what energy folks call base load power. That steady, super reliable, clean energy that just keeps flowing day and night, rain or shine. So that brings us to the big question, right? We're always talking about the electricity coming out of these plants. But what about the fuel that goes in? Let's flip the script and focus on the raw material that makes this whole thing work, uranium. Now, to really get a grip on where things are headed, you've got to look back at where we've been. So let's chart the US appetite for uranium over the past decade or so. And it's a fascinating story. You know, it's one of surprising consistency, but with some serious volatility lately. You can really see the story play out here on this timeline. After hitting a peak back in 2015, demand took a nosedive, bottoming out in 2022. A lot of that was driven by all those supply chain headaches. But then, wow, look at 2024. It comes roaring back, a super powerful rebound, with purchases surging right back up to where they were almost a decade ago. Okay, and here's the full data, which is pretty wild. In 2024, it wasn't just the amount of uranium that jumped, the average price also shot up to a new high for the decade. And when you see both volume and price spike like that at the same time, that is a crystal clear signal that demand from US power companies is back, and it's back in a big way. So all this strength brings us to a really important point, the fleet's Achilles heel. Because for all its power, this nuclear engine has some major vulnerabilities. We're talking about everything from the age of the technology to, you guessed it, where it gets its fuel. First up, let's pop the hood and see what we're working with. The fleet is basically made up of two main designs, and they've been around for a while. As you can see, about 2/3 of them are pressurized water reactors, or PWRs, and the other third are boiling water reactors, or BWRs. For decades, this combo has been the reliable workhorse standard. Now, when you look at a map, this power is really concentrated in a few spots. I mean, Illinois is the undisputed king of nuclear. They're cranking out a massive 87 terawatt hours every year. Then you've got other heavyweights like Pennsylvania and South Carolina right behind. The bottom line is a small handful of states are doing most of the heavy lifting here. And here it is. This chart right here shows the fleet's single biggest weakness, where the fuel comes from. The vast majority? It's imported. We're talking Canada, Kazakhstan, Australia, you name it. Now, I want you to look really closely at that chart. Do you see that tiny, tiny little sliver? Like, you can barely even see it? Yeah, that's what the US produces itself, just over 1%. It's crazy. Let's just let that sink in for a second. Over 90% is imported. Think about it. An industry that provides almost a fifth of the nation's electricity is almost completely dependent on other countries for its fuel. That is a massive strategic risk. It means a key part of our power grid is exposed to any geopolitical drama or price shocks happening anywhere else in the world. So all of this really sets the stage for the big conflict that's defining the entire industry right now. The US nuclear fleet is truly at a crossroads. It's caught in this massive tug of war between shutting down old plants and this idea of a rebirth, a renaissance of new ones.
And you can see these two opposing forces right here. On one side, you have the forces of retirement. We've seen major plants like Indian Point in New York shut down for good. But on the other side, you've got this renaissance. We've got brand new reactors, Vogtle 3 and 4, coming online in Georgia. And then there's something totally new, something that's never happened before, going on in Michigan.
That unprecedented event? It's the planned restart of the Palisades nuclear plant. Seriously, this is a first. It has never been done before in the US. To take a nuclear plant that has been totally shut down and decommissioned and bring it back to life. If they pull this off, it could literally write a whole new playbook for how we maintain and maybe even grow the nuclear fleet. And if you look even further down the road, the plans get even more ambitious. We're talking about really advanced stuff, like the Natrium reactor out in Wyoming, or this massive plan for 4 new reactors in Texas. And of course, everyone's talking about SMRs, small modular reactors. These are smaller, more flexible designs that could be a total game changer. But let's be real, this next wave is still years away from being a reality. Okay, so what does all this mean? What does this huge battle between retirement and renaissance actually mean for uranium demand? Well, depending on which side comes out on top, the future could look completely wildly different. So, the billion-dollar question: where does America's uranium demand go from here? Let's actually break down 3 completely different possibilities. And each one has huge implications, not just for U.S. energy security, but for the whole global energy market. This chart lays out those 3 futures perfectly. On the left, you've got the conservative scenario. If more plants shut down than get built, demand might actually dip a little by 2035. Then there's the middle-of-the-road base case, with some modest growth. But look at that third bar. In a real growth scenario where the new reactors actually get built, demand doesn't just grow, it absolutely skyrockets. And here are the hard numbers behind those bars. The base case, that's about a 9% increase in uranium needs by 2035. Not bad, but check out that growth scenario. If all these new build plans actually happen, the U.S. would need over 50% more uranium than it's using right now. I mean, that's not just a change, that is a monumental shift. Okay, so we've looked at the history, the vulnerabilities, and these wildly different potential futures. What's the takeaway here? What does all this really mean for U.S. energy? All right, here's the deal. The fleet is old, and keeping it going means we have to extend the licenses on the plants we already have. That's critical. The policies at the state level have been the only thing saving some of these reactors from closing. That deep reliance on imports, over 90%, is a massive strategic problem, and the whole future really hangs in the balance. It's all about whether the new builds and restarts can win out over the retirements. So demand could either grow a little, or it could surge like crazy by 2035. And that really leaves us with this one big question, doesn't it? You've got an aging fleet, a huge reliance on imported fuel, but also these incredibly ambitious goals for the future. So which path is America going to choose? Because nothing is set in stone, the decisions made in just the next few years are going to decide everything. Whether America's nuclear engine sputters out, just stays stable, or roars into a completely new era. Which one will it be? I guess we'll have to wait and see.